Great. Hi, everyone, and thank you for dialing in and joining us. This is the Responding to COVID-19 think tank. We're really excited to talk today and hope it will be a really productive discussion. We are hosting this meeting in a Zoom room. Some of you may be joining through the online platform where you'll have slightly different functionality, but most of us are in this Zoom meeting. You can find your audio icon on the lower left corner, as well as your video icon to turn on your video. All of you are on mute and have your video off by default, but we'd like to invite you to turn on the video if you feel comfortable doing so, but would ask you to please remain on mute while you're not speaking, just so we can cut down on background noise. If you're having any technical difficulties, there's a help icon in the top right. And you can also feel free to send me a message directly in the chat, and I'll do my best to help with any issues that come up. We'll also be using the Q&A or the chat function for Q&A, which is located sort of at the bottom center of your screen. I will send a message in just a minute so that everyone can sort of get a notification of where that is. And I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the session. Just as a note, we're also recording this, so just so you're all aware. And I am excited to introduce Brian Post, who will be leading you all through this session. Brian is a management consultant focused on helping small and mid-market companies scale, and brings over 35 years of experience accelerating top and bottom line growth. He's proficient in all aspects of commercializing innovative products and service companies from startup to scale up, and has held leadership positions as VP and SVP of sales, VP of business development, COO, president and CEO, and consultant for growth-driven, privately held small and middle market firms. He is accomplished in all aspects of creating scale, from identifying and building compelling customer value to creating and executing a comprehensive strategic plan. Brian is one of the original strategic advisors serving several growth-driven minority businesses selected to participate in the Business Equity Initiative. He is also an active board director currently serving on the board of Home Care Specialist, Inc. and Swiss Turn USA, Inc. Brian has a degree or holds a degree in industrial and systems engineering from Ohio University. He is married with a daughter in Australia and a son in Boston. And when not working, he's an active diversity networker, avid reader, and a golfer. So I will turn it over to Brian.
Welcome everybody to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. The purpose of this session is to collectively work through some of the biggest challenges we're all facing with COVID-19, and to share strategies and insights to innovate. So we're going to break into smaller groups, but I wanted to sort of just start with some basics to set the table. I like to say that we're not all in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. And some of us are sailing through that storm where others are not, and other deep inequalities, as well as many possibilities. And I think just to sort of help understand who's in the group, it would be helpful to do a quick poll. So I think Peter's going to do that while I keep talking, or how do you want to do that, Peter?
Yes, so I just launched the poll, so I believe that should pop up for everyone. Great, so we are at 15 out of 24 responses. So Brian, I don't know if you want me to read you the summary as it's coming in, or just wait until that's finalized.
That's great. That gives us, we've got a nice diverse group of maybe half and half, business to business and business to consumer, and some are both. So that's a pretty good. And then I think in terms of positive now, that's great to see that looks like 78% of the group is very positive now, and 22% later. I don't know if it's 0 or negative. So that's, none of you are really overly concerned, and it looks like you've at least formulated a plan to get you through this crisis. So that's great, and I appreciate the input on that, and I'll try to keep that in mind as we go forward. So I just wanted to start by saying that, you know, every crisis, while deeply unsettling, also contains seeds of new opportunity, as I'm sure you're all discovering. And, you know, as we started this in in March, it started with crisis management. How do we cope now? And that's just to survive. And as entrepreneurs, I think we bring great strength and energy and resilience to see opportunities, not just problems. It's very important to keep your powder dry or conserve your cash, and to cut all unessential costs, as well as secure financing presently. So these are things that are super important right now. And then as the dust starts to settle a little bit, we're looking at opportunities that the crisis has created, being open and resilient to new opportunities. And then lastly, what does the recovery look like going forward? And how do you transform, adapt, and ascend? And this is the area where you want to leverage your core competencies and strengthen and add new green shoots. I want to give sort of a really quick story just to summarize. I work with small and middle market companies, and I guess one recently that I think is worth mentioning is a commercial HVAC company who I've been working with for the last 3 years. And 3 years ago, they only did installation, and we said that they had too much customer concentration with just installation, and that we agreed that we want to develop a service division that actually does maintenance and planned maintenance on equipment. So we set that up 3 years ago, and I guess I'm proud to say that as much as we didn't expect the future downturn to be this soon, we were definitely prepared for it when it happened in March. New installation work basically died, just ended. But there was enough essential maintenance work to keep their people working, and to keep and have enough work for them. In addition, so in 2020, from March through July, almost 80% of the revenue came from service. So if they didn't have that service division set up, they would have really been hurting. And then lastly, as we can all imagine, as people are now going back into the buildings, one of the major top of mind issues is indoor air quality. And I would say up until COVID, it was something that people talked about, but didn't give it a lot of service. And now there's nothing more important than indoor air quality and how they handle bringing people back safely into the building. So that's become a really explosive new business unit for this HVAC company. And, you know, realistically, just to be fair, their business, because their installation business is so far off, their business has been off total about 35% in the worst case. But at present, starting in September and October, their business is now back to sort of 80% and moving in a positive direction. So I'm sure you all have stories similar to that, but this one sort of shows about how you need to not have customer concentration, and you need to be adaptable and resilient to look for new business opportunities during these times. And I think just lastly, I would say this is a great time to take a step back and assess the business opportunities. Externally, you want to look at your ideal customers, and then you want to develop a marketing plan that aligns with those ideal customers. And then additionally, you want to strengthen your supply chain. And oftentimes that might involve bringing your supply chain closer to home. And then internally, you want to do monthly business health checks. As we know, cash is king. You want to do routine forecasting. You want to understand key revenue and cost drivers. Preserve cash is obviously, as I said, because cash flow is basically to business as blood flow is to the human body. And secure necessary working capital to cover any shortfalls in cash. And that's something I'm sure you've all been doing with PPP and maybe idle funds and others. And additionally, when we talk about internal, you want to look at your people and first look at who and then what you want them to do. So make sure you have the right people on the bus. And build your ideal organizational design and culture. Re-examine your business model and operations. Enhance employee engagement. Being transparent and communicating clearly and concisely and continuously is very important in these times, especially if you've got a lot of remote workers. And lastly, courageous leadership, which is what I'm sure you've all been working on. So that's sort of an overview of what I think we all are probably doing in these times. We have 3 questions we've been asked to wrestle to the ground, and we'll break into some breakout groups. It looks like we have maybe 20-ish people, Peter?
We now have 30 people, so I think once, not counting the 2 of us, we'll be at 28.
So maybe we do 3 breakout groups. Does that work for you, Peter?
Yes, we can do that.
And so I think the way we'll do this is we'll address a question, and the first question is identifying challenges. So the big challenges, and we're going to try to distill this down to the top 3, but we'll have 3 groups, and then we'll spend 10 minutes going over what do you think are the top 3 challenges, and then we'll come back and spend 5 minutes distilling that, and then address the second question. So just to sort of help frame it, we've talked about what specific challenges has your business faced with respect to the COVID-19 crisis, and are these challenges industry specific or applicable to all small businesses? So there might be some, if you're in retail or restaurants or travel or hospitality, your challenges might be a little bit more onerous than those that might be involved with a B2B that's actually done well during COVID. But and then we also, some of the other questions are, what are some of the larger structural changes that have magnified the impact of the pandemic, and what are some of the shortfalls of different resources and technical assistance programs meant to support businesses at this time. So what I thought we'd do is we break into 3 breakout groups, and I'll come in and join each of you to make sure that we're moving along, and we'll have a hard set at 10 minutes, right, Peter? And then we'll come back and summarize with the 3. So I'd ask each group to assign a secretary or foreman or whatever we want to call this person to help summarize what the group has come up with. Then we'll come back, we'll summarize it, and then we'll go to the next question, which will be identifying solutions. And then the last group will be identifying outstanding issues and questions. And those are the 3 things we'll address today, and then we'll be done, okay?
Great. So I will move everyone into breakout rooms now, and just a friendly reminder, if you feel comfortable turning on your video, I think that would be great in the smaller group setting where there'll be lots of interaction. So again, only if you feel comfortable, and I will start shifting everyone into breakout rooms now. Great, looks like we are all back. So Brian, I'll hand it off to you to kick off our summary here.
So I'm hopeful we have 3 scribes, 1 from each group, and maybe if those people could each spend 1 to 2 minutes just talking about the 3 big challenges they've identified, and then we'll summarize it.
I guess I can go first.
Yep.
I took my notes, Brian. Okay, so the notes that I took were, or the problems that we are having are funding to cover costs, competing with companies that have better resources, reaching underprivileged demographics and accessing people that are usually accessed in person, sales volume versus social distancing requirements and lack of technical infrastructure to meet those needs, and understanding the difference between temporary and long-term impacts for business.
Oh, yeah, the uncertainty of the future. Yeah. So Peter, are you able to collect that?
Yes, I got those, and
Awesome.
I'll continue taking notes as we get here from the different
Awesome.
breakout rooms.
Thank you, Brittany. That was great.
I'll do my best to summarize our group. We didn't get through everybody, but I'll try to come up with a summary of what I thought the biggest challenges of what we discussed. One of the big ones for us was challenges was like learning how to pivot to new business models. We had a restaurant that had to pivot from having lines on the road, in a coffee shop, to going to takeout, and they didn't normally do takeout. We had another business that the big challenge was the large corporations are now moving to working from home, which is huge for some people that wanted to work from home, but for guys that were servicing those businesses, the big challenge now is pivoting to now servicing people who are working from home. And this was car detailing. They used to do the big detailing for the businesses. And so a lot of these guys are going back to their roots. And so the challenges of going back to your roots after all the work you've had to do. The other one that we identified, a few of us were from Maui, was local and state issues and not in transparency and just not having a good plan, which ultimately affects us. Also, we talked about another challenge. There was actually a lot of our groups seem to have challenges that they had really good outcomes. They actually talked about how they solved them as well. And I'm sure you'll talk about solutions to that. And then the other ones was, getting COVID protocols in place, I think was, just in adapting to how to do that. And then some people were saying, not so much a challenge, but just this was a good time to focus on your business, again, that you never had time to do before. So there was a lot of actually positive outcomes from our group. So, despite it seeming like our whole group got really affected by this, they also said they're making the most of it.
Excellent.
And then the last thing, one more was that I had added was the staffing issues, getting staff to come back. And that was another challenge.
Mostly because of safety?
My staff coming back because they got pretty comfortable being away and being on unemployment and
the peyotes and all. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That was great.
I might not have gotten everything, but I tried.
I'll jump in for our group, a fairly small group, but the one thing that was common was the pivoting, the challenge of pivoting to something completely different. So one was a B2B business, and now pivoting to be a B2C business, and also with the Maui thing totally drying up, tourists pivoting to a new client base and adaptation. There was a marketing challenge of seeing a common challenge amongst businesses finding their new client archetype. It's like, how do you tell that story? Mm-hmm. And then challenging creating engaging experiences without the ability to travel, without the ability to come face to face. How do you create those engaging experiences with events, etc.? And the final one we didn't get to talk about as time ran out, but it was the eviction moratorium was a big challenge.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's great. So I think Peter will try to summarize what we just got from the three groups. And just to let everybody know at the end of this, I'm going to ask for 2 volunteers. And those 2 people will be the reporters that will then take what we've come up with and report back to the ICIC folks on December 8th. So we'll do that at the very end. We can try to distill the notes and then assign 2 people, and then those people Peter can get your emails, make sure that everybody's got the notes and they're comfortable with, so it'll be 5 to 7 minutes. So the next breakout group we're going to do is identifying solutions, and just to sort of set the table a little bit, how have you attempted to solve these challenges? What have you seen other businesses do, and what solutions, resources have been most successful? So some of the solutions, what resources are available to support businesses through these tough times? And I guess that would be both state, local, could be funding, it could also be consulting, etc. What can business owners do to best prepare themselves for these challenges? and what needs to be done on a state and local level, as we mentioned before. So we'll break out into another group, and it'll be a hard stop at a little bit after 2 o'clock, maybe 2 or 3 minutes after 2 o'clock. We'll finish that one. Then we've got one last one to just identify outstanding issues and questions. Okay? So off we go.
Great. I will send everyone an invitation for the breakout room now. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Everyone should be out of the breakout rooms. So I will hand it back over to Brian to kick us off on our summaries of the different sessions and what you all talked about. Brian, you are on mute.
I wanted to thank everybody. I know this is a little bit frenetic, and I don't think everybody's getting a great opportunity to discuss their business, but let's just, we can, each of the 3 scribes for the last breakout session, if you could identify the big solutions that you've identified, and then Peter will capture that and we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, I can go first if you want. My name is Steve, breakout room number 2. We have found that networking and promotion in the virtual conference space is an opportunity, hasn't been proven yet to some of the people who have applied to them. But as an anecdote, I found that if you can do networking within those virtual conferences and really pick the person you want to network with, it's been very helpful. The second one was really know who your archetype is, really know who the business, the consumer or the business that you're going for, what they need and how you need to message them, and necessarily what the differentiation messaging is for your business. We have a restaurant owner who is moving into the product space. So doing branded products of their restaurant and hopefully recreating the experience with seasoning, with different sauces that people can take home, which is pretty cool. For the Maui people, our Hawaiian friends, they've moved over to various platforms on webinars and various social platforms, and that has helped them increase the number of people that are actually joining these conferences, which is interesting. People who will not necessarily get to Hawaii or have the money or time to get, they are able to join. So they've seen that change. And also very interesting, their value proposition has changed for going to local community versus outside, since they don't have the tourists anymore. And they've seen that the local businesses that are giving back to the community and proving that they are part of the community and want to be in the community and messaging that, they are doing better. And they are finding that people want to help them. So that's great to know from a messaging opportunity. And I think, oh, and actually we have a design printing business who actually goes to virtual conferences, and some of the local virtual conferences are still printing tote bags and face masks and other product. So he had the opportunity to give the product to the tote bag, to print the tote bag, and the actual conference will then let people pick them up when they have the time. So that was an interesting opportunity from a virtual perspective. And that's breakout room number 2. Thanks, Steve. Who's next?
I'll go. I wrote down keeping staff safe with protective everything, protective gear to protective spaces, applying for as many grants as possible, whether that's by yourself or using an accountant, payroll service, etc. Using what you have to adapt and to add revenue streams, and identifying alternative ways to reach your audience.
Excellent. Thank you, Brittany. Who's last? Or saving
That'll be me. Save the best for last. Yes. Hi, I'm Anishka, and I'm from Breakout 3. So what we identified was that 1, being able to operate with limited resources, limited staff. 2, pivoting from in-person to online/virtual workshops/events. 3, trying to create an engaging and experiences for employees and clients. Some of the people in my group have expressed that it's kind of difficult it's tricky because they're so well versed with the in-person platform that is kind of tricky and kind of hard, and it's just trying to make sure that keeping everyone engaged with the way that they work. And lastly, we have another person that does that has a restaurant out in DC, and I think it's the same thing because they do trade shows, and that's something that's in person, and they're just trying to continue to manage their business by adapting to the new way, since they can't have people sitting in. So now they're doing more of like packaging and developing a takeout menu in order to still continue to provide.
Excellent. One of the things that I heard loud and clear is as we're pivoting and looking at new ideal customers, it also requires a need to change or maybe enhance our marketing plan and aligning that marketing plan to these new customers. So that was great input on everybody. So we've got basically 5 minutes left. So we're going to do a real speed last 5 minutes on identifying outstanding issues and questions. And these are things like, how do you foresee these challenges presenting themselves or evolving over the next 6 to 12 months? How do you anticipate the pandemic will affect your business and or industry in the long term? So how are things, what's the long-term future look like now that the pandemic, it's not a new normal, it's a new reality? And what concerns remain regarding your business and its trajectory? So we'll break out, we'll do 5 minutes only, and then we'll come back and summarize. And I want to thank everybody for all the great input so far.
All right, I will send out the invitation for the breakout rooms now. All right, hi everyone, and welcome back. Brian, I'll hand it off to you again to kick us off on our summaries.
We made it. That was excellent. I appreciate everybody's input. So if we can have from each of those last 3 groups, summarize maybe 1 or 2 things, and we'll wrap this up.
All right, I can go. The notes I took here were viewing opportunities, or viewing issues as opportunities rather than negative things. Managing negative stress is a current issue. Managing customer expectations, and also managing financial impact trickle down. So from customers down to the businesses that are spending their money on.
And then for breakout room 2, it was consumer behavior is so hard to predict in terms of planning day to day. So that's been a hard one for people. Which pivot makes the most sense? If you have opportunities to pivot, where do you pivot? How do you pivot? How do you message that new pivot? Reserving cash flow, thinking that things might not get better necessarily even with the vaccine. So reserving cash flow and where to spend that money most appropriately seem to be the biggest ones.
Excellent.
And the main theme in breakout room 1 was the long-term effect was that online was here to stay, and basically, going digital, whether it's conferences or marketing, challenges how to market, keep marketing to that, differentiate, and also the potential of moving to a hybrid model. There's lots of complexities with that. What does a hybrid model look like in the future? And that continual adaptation, it's a continual changing landscape. And so how do you continue to adapt to variations?
Excellent. I think one of the things I take away from just listening to the different groups is how you're all, I think, great leaders. I mean, you're looking at flipping challenges and turning them into opportunities, and that's sort of the backside of a challenge is the opportunity. I think you're all doing that incredibly well. And I think lastly, I just say, when you are pivoting, it's the prioritize and then execute, right? It's very challenging there might be 10 things you could do, but you really have to prioritize and then make sure that you execute. You can't get paralyzed by this. And this isn't going away anytime soon, I think, is a general consensus. So you need to embed these new ideas into your business model. So that was excellent. I think we're at a point now, assuming Peter was able to capture what the different groups provided, then we're looking for two volunteers to report back to the group on the 8th. So it would be a 5 to 7 minute summary of what our takeaways were from our discussion today. So is there 2 people that would like to volunteer?
And I have, as Brian mentioned, taken notes on all of the report backs from everyone. So you'll have a nice summary of what we talked about in writing in a Word doc that I can email to you. So it'll mostly just be telling the larger group what we talked about and sort of the key takeaways.
If you send me the summary, I'll do it.
Great. So I'll drop my email in the chat. If you volunteer, please just send me an email and I will respond with the document.
We need one other volunteer though.
Yes.
Brittany needs somebody to be with what she's presenting on Friday.
I can be with her.
Excellent, Mona.
Thanks, Mona.
Definitely girl pride today. So I think Mona and Brittany will offer their emails, then Peter can provide the notes he's taken. I'm available if anybody's got any questions between now and Friday. I just want to summarize and just say that, as we all know, it's the small business entrepreneurial spirit that really is the lifeblood of the country and the economy. And it's just encouraging to listen to everybody today and hear how both positive and stable you are in your leadership skills. So I commend you all and I wish you all the best in 2021 with the new and adapted business model you've all developed. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.